Okay, welcome Prep 1 students. This is a summary of Chapter 6, Oliver Twist. I hope that's going to be useful and helpful to you. And let's start. At the beginning of the chapter, we can see Oliver regained his strength slowly. The picture of the woman was removed from off the wall, was not mentioned again. Oliver was disappointed about the disappearance of the picture because he liked the woman's face. Those were Oliver's happiest days in life. Oliver was surrounded by people who loved him and cared for him. Mrs. Bidwin played cards with him and told him stories about her family. Mr. Brownlow bought Oliver new clothes and new shoes. One day, Mr. Brownlow called Oliver to his study room to have a talk with him. He was so serious that Oliver felt alarmed and begged Mr. Brownlow not to send him away. Mr. Brownlow comforted him, and wanted to hear everything about Oliver's past life and how he mixed with those bad boys. Mr. Grimwig, a friend of Mr. Brownlow, arrived. He was so fierce and fond of argument. He knew everything about Oliver and began to question him. He believed that Oliver might be a good-looking boy, but he was a deceiver. Mr. Brownlow angrily disagreed. Later that afternoon, he wanted to return some books to the bookseller. Mr. Grimwig had an idea to test Oliver's faithfulness and honesty. He wanted Oliver to carry the books back to the bookshop. Mr. Brownlow hesitated at first, then he agreed to this test and gave Oliver 5 books, £5 note, and told him that the bookseller would give him some change. Mr. Grimwig was quite sure that Oliver wouldn't come back. He would run away with the money. He said that if Oliver came back, he would eat his hat. Dressed in his new suit and new shoes, Oliver ran to the bookshop. He was so excited and thought how lucky he was when he was suddenly caught by a young woman who called him her little brother. He cried out and tried to get away from her, but he couldn't. The woman burst into tears and several people gathered round them. She told them that Oliver was her little brother and he ran away from home, thus breaking his mother's heart. The people sympathized with her and they all told Oliver to go back home with his sister. Oliver cried and said that he had no sisters, but nobody believed him. Then Bill Sikes appeared and he recognized Oliver and ordered him to go back to his mother. Oliver resisted, but the big man who was Bill Sikes hit him with his hand and dragged him away. The crowd were pleased and said that was the only way to treat boys like Oliver. When they reached Fagin's house, Oliver was so tired and weak, and Fagin and other boys mocked him and roared with laughter. Then the Dodger and Charlie Bates came to Oliver and snatched the books from him. Oliver jumped wildly and begged them to send the books back to the old gentleman, who was so kind to him. Fagin then hit Oliver with a long stick and was going to hit him again when Nancy wildly rushed at Fagin and got hold of the stick and stopped him. She told him it was enough. He got the boy back. It was enough to turn him into a thief, but there was no need to kill him. Both Fagin and Sikes were surprised by her behavior. Charlie and the Dodger took away Oliver's new suit and pair of shoes. gave him some old clothes, and locked him up in a dark room where he fell asleep. That's all for this chapter. Thank you.